Hey, how you guys doing? It's your boy Beastly back at it again with another CFB 27 video. And today, ladies and gentlemen, I have for you the very first episode in our How to Dynasty series for CFB 27. If you're new, this is the series where I give you the best tips and tricks for online and offline dynasties to improve your overall experience playing the mode, whether that's versus people or versus the CPU. Last year, the very first episode was about the best coach build, so I figured I might as well go ahead and record episode 1 of this series and give you guys the best coach build for CFB 27. And spoiler alert, the build's almost going to be identical to CFB 27, or to 26, excuse me, because not much has changed for 27. So if you notice a lot of overlay, there you go. If you're new to my channel and this is a new video for you, I appreciate that for starters. You don't have to watch my content, you guys choose to, which again, big shout out to you guys. I appreciate the time out of your day. And I'm going to have this video chapter down below. That way, if there's a specific segment of the build or there's a specific breakdown you guys want to have, you guys can skip to that portion of the video. While I'm also going to be showing you in this video the best coach build, I am also going to show you a super easy one because this is very annoying and requires a ton of min-maxing to replicate this. Whereas I will show you a second one, which is super simple, super easy. Anyone can do it. Just click button, get rewards, yada, yada, yada. Not very hard. And then I will show you some pictures or a screenshot or two of the build in action. That way you guys can see what this build is capable of. But yeah, without further ado, let's go ahead and hop into what is the best coach build in CFB 27 and what do these perks actually do. So for starters, we're going to start with the top down this year. We're going to open up with CEO. Beastly, why are we starting with the perk that requires 2 national championships? Well, that's because this entire coach build could not function without the most integral part, which is bundle discount. If you don't know what bundle discount is, I was singing this perk's praise all of last year, and I will be doing it again this year, kind of, as you will see momentarily why. But with bundle discount, as the ability reads, coach abilities are 2 points less for each coach on your staff that has the ability. Ergo, if base recruiter costs me 15 points to purchase, if my OC has that thing, let's say for quarterbacks, and my DC has it for quarterbacks, that would be 15 minus 2, which would be 11, which that discount is what allows this build to be purchased because there's a limited number of coach points you have when you play this game. Don't quote me on the exact number, but I do believe by reaching level 100, you do obtain 2,450 tokens. That number might be off by a little bit, but you get around 2,500, give or take, again, not counting the pre-order stuff, of a coach build, along with extra tokens throughout your leveling up process for getting, goals, awards, and stuff like that. So you're going to have about 2,500 plus tokens to work with. And with this perk, you get even more tokens to play with because you're buying things on discount. Another big tip, which is why I'm including this, again, going from the top-down perspective, is because this description in typical EA faction is wrong. No, you do not lose 2 CP or 2 coach points per purchase of the thing. It's actually 5. So going back to the example of base recruiter, if it costs you 15, but your OC has it and your DC has it, it actually becomes 5 points, which is a tremendous difference. That just saved you over 66% or roughly 2/3 of the price, which is a massive deal. Again, I'm putting this in the beginning of the video just for the people who are skipping around and not really paying attention to the build. If you don't have this perk and you don't use this perk properly, the rest of the build will not work. So without a shadow of a doubt, if you're going to copy this build, you got to have bundle discount. The next perk that is, in my opinion, lasting impressions was the most overpowered perk in CFB 26 last year, and it's the most important perk this year. This perk stacks tremendously well with a different perk that we're going to cover, or actually 2 different perks we're going to cover later on in this video. But these 2 perks, I would legitimately buy these every single rebuild. It doesn't matter if I'm doing a 30-year sim or what have you. And the only reason why you would not buy these perks is if you're doing a 1-year rebuild where or 1 natty rebuild, you win the natty once and then you're done. Then obviously all these perks are irrelevant. But if you're doing any long-term rebuild where you're playing for more than 1 or 2 natties, like you're doing a 30-year rebuild like I do on my channel or various stuff with like online leagues, buy this stuff. This stuff is really overpowered. Again, lasting impression, the amount of interest you get, the additional bonus that does stack with everything else is absolutely insane. Now, even though I do recommend these two as non-negotiable perks, the other benefit, I guess I should go ahead and tell you now, with the bundle discount is this makes your coach points cheaper to purchase, but it also does the inverse for your coordinators. If you sim a lot like I do, you guys know that around the 10-year mark of your dynasty, pretty much everything goes extinct. If you go and look for coordinators, you will be lucky if you find one elite recruiter or one talent developer or one strategist or one architect. They just don't repopulate. They don't respawn. And then once when all the real coaches leave your save file, you're SOL. You're just done. So this perk is also really important because you can get regular coordinators for $0 and keep them for about 10 or so years and make your own elite recruiters, make your own talent developers, make your own stuff. And that way the game doesn't have to screw you so much because, oh, hey, there's no elite recruiters left in save file because I'm 22 years down the road. Let me just make my own elite recruiters. Now, is it a very fast process? No, it's very slow. Last year was super quick, but either way, this perk is a 2-for-1. It makes your build much better by buying more perks, but also when you are eventually set up and you have your build, you could then make your own coordinators because they will copy your build because everything they're buying will be for a reduced price. So these two perks, non-negotiable. Senior Superlatives. This perk, I sang its praise a lot last year. This was also a perk I always purchased. This year, it's a hard pass. Beastly, why'd you have this perk purchased in the coach build if it's a hard pass? So now that we're a few minutes or so into this very long video, I'm going to go ahead and spoil for you. Beastly didn't do math properly when doing this video on stream. Basically, I will cover it again when we get to that portion of the video, but I did the math for if I were to purchase all the perks I end up overpaying for full price. So I kind of gave up, threw in the towel, and just wasted my tokens towards the end of the build, when in reality, I went back and fact-checked my own math. Turns out I was incorrect, and I actually had the correct number of tokens to do the thing I was trying to do. And so just in a perfect world, I wouldn't have bought this. I also wouldn't have bought More the Merrier, and I also wouldn't have bought Second Chance. Second Chance Keeper, I should say. I would have skipped all three of these. These are very expensive. I wasted 120 tokens here. Very bad. Beastly, why is this perk bad? This perk isn't bad on paper because it fundamentally functions the exact same way it did last year. And if you do the skill cap exploit, which by the way is still in the game from last year, this perk stacks with that. So you can technically infinitely break more skill caps than you used to. Very fun glitch. But the problem is last year, you could 100% guarantee a player not to be drafted as long as you didn't upgrade them past a certain point in overall. And if you did have other perks, which we'll get to later on in this build, you could keep them forever, forcing them to always be a senior, which means the perk would always work, which means you would always get value. This year, I'm not going to say it's all the time, but this year you're almost never going to have seniors, especially redshirt seniors, on your squad. Typically, if you guys, obviously everyone wants to go after the elite dev and the star dev prospects. The reason why you want to go after those prospects is because they develop the quickest. The problem with them developing the quickest is that they also become a high overall, which means they become draft eligible super quick. Slap a Heisman, slap a Natty, slap any award on that player. They're going to be like, coach, I'm going to go first round pick. I'm not staying here. So this perk, again, on paper is great. But the issue is the only people you're really going to keep to their senior year, whether it's a redshirt senior or their true senior year, is going to probably be normal dev bums. And I really don't think this perk justifies the normal dev or the impact dev bums, because just go get elite devs. So this perk, again, is on paper, it should be amazing, right? But because you can't, like last year, keep your players longer, they will just randomly leave early now. I hate the system they've done this year. They've lowered the threshold to have players draft eligible. Last year, without perks, it was about an 88 overall. With perks, about a 90. This year, you can have players draft in the low 80s. I can't tell you how many times on my 30-year rebuilds I've done where I have a redshirt sophomore or a true junior leave who's like an 83, 84 overall, and they're like, nah, coach, I'm being a 7th round pick. Bye-bye. And they just leave. I give them the money, I do everything I'm supposed to, I buy the perks, I change my settings, and they just leave. Very frustrating. So on paper, this perk should be amazing. It's just, if you can keep someone to their senior year to where the perk actually activates, it's good, but you're talking one out of every, like, probably 15 to 25 players. And in my opinion, you should just infinitely recruit elite devs and star devs and not try to help the impact dev and normal devs. Those guys are filler players for a reason. You shouldn't be helping them. Plus, even if you do buy this for those players, most normal dev players are going to get between 15 and 20 tokens per offseason, and impact devs are between 25 and 30. So you're unlocking maybe 1 or 2 buckets that they may or may not get any use out of. So just go ahead, skip this perk, not worth it. Last Dance, this perk is trash. Doesn't matter if it's an online or offline dynasty. Do not buy this. You should always be trying to put your visits ahead of the computer or your other visits ahead of the other users in your league. You never want to play second fiddle. You never want to be the 3rd, 4th, 5th team on that list. If you're not first, you're last. This perk sucks. Don't buy it. Already covered this perk. Best perk in the game. Second Chance Keeper, don't recommend this. I was trying a coach build in this build of like, okay, well, maybe to try and stop the players from leaving early, I will buy the perks that reduce the chances of them leaving. I will buy these perks to have a 2nd or 3rd chance to negotiate with them. These perks do nothing. If your guy's going to be a 1st round pick, they're going to be a 1st round pick. I have found no impact changing no settings, buying any perks with players who leave. If you have a very high chance of signing them and they still choose to leave, doesn't matter if it takes 1, 2, 3, or 5 attempts, you're not going to get them. It's almost kind of pre-scripted, in my opinion, where very rarely will you ever get to keep someone. And if you do keep them, you got to pay them a lot. So it's probably not worth it. But this perk, just skip it. It's not worth it. Gasoline, this perk sucks. Don't buy this online or offline. You can literally have players start hot or cold and instantly within 1 play lose it. So why would you waste a perk on something that can be triggered once and either gain it or lose it per play? Pretty trash. Don't buy that. Dream School. Very controversial perk. Got a lot of crap last year for not liking this perk, as I've explained last year, and I guess nothing's changed for this perk. I will maybe in this year make a whole video about Dream School. Let me know in the comments down below if you like a whole video dedicated just for Dream School. But basically, this gives you a very small percentage chance to insta-commit the recruit. However, you do have to have prerequisites to do so. You can't just give anybody an offer and have them insta-commit. First of all, you have to be their number 1 interest. Right? If you're their number 2, number 3, number 5 interest, this perk will not do anything. So that alone makes this perk very bad, because depending on what school you're rebuilding, depending on, your other perks and what situations you're in, this perk literally might not do anything, which is terrible. Secondly, even if you're their number 1 interest, if there's a 2nd or 3rd school that is also very close to you, more than likely it's not going to do anything. You basically need to be the number 1 interest, and the number 1 interest by a wide margin. So for example, 2 and 3 stars, this perk will trigger a ton. 4 stars, not often, but every now and then it can. And then 5 stars will virtually never happen. I think last year during my entire Oregon 30-year rebuild, where I lost 10 sim games in 30 seasons, I do believe this perk triggered 4 times. So 5 stars don't count on this perk ever doing anything. For 4 stars, it's like 40%, 30%. It's better than 5 stars, but, and then 3 stars, it happens a lot, but they're 3 stars. Who really cares? So this perk sucks. I know the logic is like, well, you can save money in NIL, and I agree with you. You technically can, but the amount of hoops one has to jump through just to get this perk to do something is crazy. Don't buy said perk. More the merrier. Beastly, why is this perk bad? This perk is really good. From my testing, EA has giga nerfed visits. Visits are now no longer anywhere near as impactful as they used to be. I think the reason why EA did this was to make the perks that buff your visits better, which we will not be buying in this video, but to make those perks better by making base recruiting or base visits worse, which also stinks because there's this thing called NIL in this game. So whether you are missing perks, whether you're missing pipelines, just give them more money. So this perk I thought would be really impactful. This perk borderline did nothing. I pretty much, when I was doing the save file to get this for the footage for this video, while I was streaming, everything streamed on YouTube right here around 6 o'clock CST every day. Stop by if you can. When I was doing the testing for this, I had almost my entire boards of 5 and 4 stars recruited by like week 3, maybe week 4. So this perk didn't do anything because I was so far ahead of the CPU that the visits never even kicked in. So I see the logic here. But if you are relying on a visit to save your recruit in like an online league, you better be first. Otherwise, you're cooked. And if you're in an offline league, again, the same premise. If Georgia or Ohio State's fighting you for a receiver or a quarterback, you better be first. Otherwise, this will do nothing. Who cares if you have 17 million players stacked on one visit? If you can't get the visit off, it won't matter. Now, I guess you could argue there's a new system where you have the verbal commits and then the hard commits. But either way, with this build, you will recruit so well, assuming you have pipelines, which every school but 2 or 3 have pipelines. So assuming you have this build and you have decent coordinators, you won't even need this perk. Last but not least, we'll cover Game Getter. this perk just sucks. So how I play the game, again, online, offline, a little different, but how I play the game is I, on average, get about 15 to 25 Elite Dev or Star Dev recruits every single year. You can't upgrade Elite Dev. Once when your player has Elite Dev, they will never improve, which means this perk theoretically would only work for me for the normal dev, the impact dev, and the star devs. But again, I have so many of the star devs that it's not going to make that tremendous of a difference, right? They'll go from getting 75, 80 tokens a year to like 100. So it's not that big of a deal for Elite or Star. And then furthermore, what they don't actually involve in this perk is that the player has to actually play on the field for this perk to do something. Meaning, if you recruit like 15 quarterbacks and you're just crossing your fingers, one of them gets a random dev bump, no. If they're not on your field, they don't get the bump. So, which also factors into it. Like if I have my starters, again, all elite devs and star devs, most of the time, again, I play the game a little different than some of you guys do, but if you're on my field, you're a starter, that means you're really good. If you're really good, you're more than likely going to be draft eligible. So is there a super niche situation where you could have like a generational impact dev recruit, like a receiver or a corner, and you give the bag to, and you get him to come back his junior and senior year, and like, yeah, there's a world in which maybe he can be bumped from impact dev to star dev or star dev to elite dev. But again, why are you jumping through all of these hoops and all these hurdles to just get the perk to do something when you can just buy other perks in this build that require a fraction of the effort and you get tremendous amount of rewards? So avoid this perk. Also, I think last year when I bought this perk in my 30-year sim file with Oregon, I believe we calced it over 30 seasons. I only had like, I think 12 or 13 players ever get the dev bump. So it basically doesn't work. And yeah, that's basically everything from CEO. The non-negotiables are always lasting impressions. This is the best perk in the game. And then bundle discount for both yourself and your coordinators. Again, if you do want to copy this build, you have to buy it. If you don't, this is pretty much just to help your coordinators out. But these two perks are really good. And if for some reason EA changes the game, or they actually update the game to where have the perks in the game actually work, or the settings in the game actually work, and you can keep people till their senior year, I would then buy this perk. But due to how impossibly difficult it is to have a senior on your roster, that won't cost you a kidney. Just skip this perk and pretty much everything else. And that is CEO. And we are only 20 minutes into the Yap session, so that's pretty good. Let's get onto Program Builder. In our next journey in how to build the best coach in CFB 27, we have the next non-negotiable perk for almost every single team. Again, there are a few schools where they don't have pipelines. So there's no point in upgrading your pipelines, but we got Relationship Builder. This is really simple. You get upgrades to your pipelines. The only downside to this perk is you don't have control where the upgrades go. So example, if you're using someone like Rice, there's a very high probable chance your upgrades will go in Texas, Florida, and California, which are the 3 best states in the game for recruiting. But if you're using someone like Arkansas State, that could go, to the Tidewater. It can go to Florida. It can go to Georgia. There's so many states they have. Basically, the more wider your net is for pipelines, the more random your upgrades are. So this perk, I would say for about 90 to 95% of the schools in the game, just buy this perk. Right? It requires no thought, no brain activity, just click button, color go up, and influence matters a ton. I know there's this misconception going out there with a few of the content creators that pipelines it doesn't really matter with money. You were out of your mind. Money does obviously help when you're recruiting, yes, but pipelines matter so much more. If you have a no pipeline versus a school with a 5, you will have to spend a tremendous amount more money on the recruit to get them from a school with a 5 than if you had like a 2 or a 3. So pipelines do matter. And these perks, or this perk specifically, is a non-negotiable. The other non-negotiable for this perk is just like the bundle discount equivalent in Program Builder. That is Inside Track. You want to buy all the way to tier 3, which is friends and family discount. Just to give you guys a visual representation of what this perk does, just like how bundle discount reduces the price of the actual perks if your coordinators have it, bundle discount reduces the archetype sections that you got to purchase to buy those perks. Now, if you look in the bottom right of your screen, if I were to buy Tactician, right now it costs me 175 tokens. EA jacked these prices up significantly in this game. I hate it, but it cost me 175. Now, if I had an OC and DC with Tactician, because of Inside Track, they would make it significantly cheaper. Now, I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure just like the description for bundle discount was incorrect. They said it's 2 points, when in reality, I'm pretty sure it's like 5. This I'm also is incorrect. I think the amount of reduction is 25 or 30 per. So if you don't buy bundle discount and you don't buy friends and family discount, you will not have the tokens to afford this build. That's kind of the main reason why I'm covering these 2 sections first, is because without these 2 sections, the rest cannot function. Next, we're going to get into a very sad portion of this video, in which I'm going to call it the EA nerfs, in which EA has nerfed several perks in this game. Kind of, not really. Well, again, I'll yap about it when we get there, but Forever Home was a god tier, S tier, Omega level threat in CFB 26. Basically, when you bought Forever Home, your coordinators would never leave, right? Again, referencing back the Oregon save file I had last year where I streamed the whole thing, lost 10 sim games in 30 years. It was a very great rebuild. The reason why I was able to dominate that save file was because I had an OC and a DC that were literally with me the entire rebuild. We won like 30 natties together. Was it overpowered? Yes. But it was really cool that you could keep your staff forever. In this game, Forever Home was significantly nerfed to being about a 65 to 70% chance to keep your coordinator. If you roll the dice long enough, eventually you will fail. The other crap part about this game is that eventually coordinators will cost more money than the game will let you spend on them. Hate that feature of the game. It's really stupid. Basically, the limit to how much you can pay your coordinator is 2,000 NIL or 2,000 staff points. There's moments in which you have a level 100, level 95, level 85 coordinator. They'll ask for like 3,000 points, and it doesn't matter how many points you have in the bank. EA will physically restrict you from spending more than 2K, which is stupid. And so this perk, I'm still going to recommend you purchase this perk, but just realize, unlike last year, if you had this perk, you would never lose your coordinators. This year, you can still lose your coordinators, even if you turn off coach firing in the settings, and you buy this perk, and you give them a supermax contract, they will still just leave. And since coach contracts in this year do not extend past a 3-year contract, that can be really risky. I can't tell you how many times I've had to fail and redo this build, because I would lose a coordinator a year or 2 early, and they would either retire to the NFL or go be a head coach somewhere else. Very frustrating. If you choose not to buy this perk, I understand, because there's a pretty large percentage chance you can just get hoed. Again, even if you turn off the settings and you give them the money they want, and you can go above and beyond, and they will still just leave. So, for the sake of most rebuilds, and for this build, I would highly advise you to purchase Forever Home. But just know EA did ultra nerf this perk, because this went from being a 100% chance to now being a 60 to maybe a 70% chance if you're lucky. So just keep that in mind. Next, we're going to cover Strong Roots. Strong Roots, I do not recommend buying this perk most of the time. I bought it in this video because this was one of the wasted perks. I did, again, just wasting tokens because your boy Beastly can't count. But I bought it for the video, I guess, just for the sake of this conversation we're going to have here. With Strong Roots, this only buffs your primary pipeline. So to give you an easy example, what is your primary pipeline? If you're the University of Alabama, your primary pipeline is Alabama. This does not help you with Florida. This does not help you with Georgia. This just helps you with your primary pipeline. Unless, again, I don't have like the code of this game. There are some people who are data mining the game on the PC front. Shout out you guys like CFB Max and others. So maybe they did change this perk from last year, but from what I've seen, this perk only affects your primary pipeline. So if you're recruiting in a state, or if you're rebuilding a school in a state that's not Florida, that's not Texas, that's not California, don't buy this perk. Example, if you're doing a rebuild with Wyoming, that's their primary pipeline, is Wyoming. This perk, you recruit 3 kids a year from Wyoming. It doesn't do any, I mean, technically it does help you recruit those 3 kids better, but like, why? Or like Hawaii. Hawaii's primary pipeline is Hawaii. They have a tier 2 or tier 3 there. It's terrible. Congratulations, it's going to help you scout maybe 12 players a year. So unless you're a Florida, Texas, or California team, just don't buy this. There's virtually no point. most of the time your primary pipeline is also your best pipeline, and because the other perks we're going to have in this build, they will actually help you recruit and do stuff better than what this perk can. But again, if you are a Florida, if you are a Texas or California school, this perk is god tier because there are so many Florida, so many California, and so many Texas schools, and there's so many recruits from those 3 states that this does tremendously help you. So in those rare situations you're rebuilding those 3 big states, buy this perk, otherwise skip it. Next, just like how I talked about how they gutted my boy Forever Home, they also gutted my boy Best Advice. This perk, roster retention, I have tested all of them. Basically, these perks got giga nerfed along with the other perk did in Forever Home. So Best Advice last year pretty much made it like a 98% chance that if they were a 3rd to 7th round draft pick, they would not leave. It was almost 100% chance. You would get screwed on this perk literally once every like probably 25 seasons. It was super rare. Then, again, it's going off last year's numbers, was let's run it back and Delay Sunday. Delay Sunday basically never worked. If they were a 1st round pick, they would always leave to be a 1st round pick. Tier 3 never worked. Big complaint I had last year. This year, spoiler alert, still doesn't work. And then let's run it back for the 2nd round picks. Also doesn't work. If your guy's a high enough overall and they're a 2nd round pick, 1, he'll demand a lot of money from you, which most of the time is not financially responsible to go give someone 800 NIL, versus just letting them go be a 2nd round draft pick. But even if you do cough up that cash, most 2nd round picks, I'm talking 75 to 85% still leave. So these 2 perks, tier 2 and tier 3, basically do nothing. You're talking 1 in like 100 chance of it actually working. Best Advice, on the other hand, again, went from being about 100% chance, it was like a 98, 97, very rarely did you ever get screwed, to just like the other perk, Forever Home, this is about a 70% chance now. I can't tell you how many times on my streams I have lost Elite Dev and Star Dev redshirt sophomores or true juniors to the draft. And they'd be like, no, coach, I'd rather go be a 7th round draft pick for the Jets than stay 1 more year and gain 100+ tokens and become a stud. It's very annoying. Again, I've changed the settings. I have bought the coach perks. Hell, I've even given them money. They will still sometimes just leave. So just like Forever Home, I would advise you buying it just because there's a 70% chance you won't get screwed. This perk's the exact same way. There's about a 60 to a 70% chance you won't get hoed, but the odds are not 0. So if you do lose a really good quarterback or a really good left tackle who's like an 85, 84 overall, who you would think, oh, he's coming back next year. No, he might be a 5th round pick from Tampa and just go get paid $100,000 a year to be a backup. It's super sad. I hate how much EA have nerfed these perks, mostly because of NIL. And this is a little Alex Drones conspiracy theory over here. But I believe EA nerfed these perks because of money. They wanted the money mechanic to mean more. But the problem is it's just a horrible change that, again, you can change the settings, you can buy the perks, you can give them money. They're still not going to listen. Speaking of them not listening, High Integrity, the Gift of Gab, and Roster Retainer, these perks do nothing. I have tried it with guys I've given money to. I've tried it with low draft picks. Again, it kind of feels like if they're just going to leave in this game, they just leave. Doesn't matter if it's this very high chance to persuade them, they just leave. Even when I have turned off the transfer portal, where they physically can't leave my roster, they will still leave. I was testing it in this. These are 2 perks. Would highly advise you to skip. Just like tier 2, let's run it back. I would also skip for roster retention just because they don't do anything. And for the rare chances they actually do something, congratulations, there's 45 other kids that did nothing for. So it's a lot of tokens to be wasting on stuff that doesn't really work. And then lastly, we're going to cover Set the Tone. Home field advantage for the Composure. Road Warriors protects you from Composure and Not Intimidated. Increased protection for home field advantage. This is pretty much only useful for online dynasties. But again, I could be wrong, but I believe all playoff games and the Natty are played in neutral sites. And neutral sites don't have crowd noise. So you would basically be buying this perk for your regular season games. And if you're playing the computer, if you're good enough at the game or have a good enough roster, there's no amount of composure and or crowd noise that's going to screw you enough to really make you lose. And again, if you're playing people, different story. If you're playing in a hyper competitive online league, I would buy all of this just because you don't want to lose because you're trying to hot route somebody and you can't make the adjustment because you're getting screwed. However, it's like, unless you're in again, a hyper competitive online dynasty, which is super rare, it's kind of pointless. This is useless in sim. It's useless against the computer most of the time, and just really not worth it. Again, there's probably like 4 people who are watching this video where it actually would apply to them. Like if you're doing like a money league, like $1,000 tournament, I would buy this because you again don't want to get screwed on nonsense when you want to win. But aside from those very, very select few people, this is just pointless. So to recap, the only non-negotiable perk that's currently in Program Builder for this build is Relationship Builder. You got to have that. That's a non-negotiable. You have to have it. And then for this build, you also have to have Inside Track. Now, if you're going down this build to replicate the stuff, you also need to purchase Forever Home to try to increase the odds of keeping your coordinators as long as humanly possible. That way you can leech off their success and buy their perks for cheap. Just to keep your sanity, I would advise you buying at least Best Advice for roster retention. That way, when you do get screwed on a random 6th or a random 5th or a random 7th round draft pick, you can just blame EA like I do for how incompetent they are at making a game. That way, at least you know, hey, I tried. But, you know, again, Strong Roots, hyper situational, and then all of Gift of Gab or all of High Integrity and or Tier 2/Tier 3 of roster retention. Just skip that, save your points, stick them elsewhere. And that should be all of Program Builder. The next portion of this long yap session will be Rainmaker. I know, the disgusting pay-to-win perk they locked behind the stupid membership. I agree with you guys. I think it's wrong that EA locked this perk behind a paywall. However, I'm going to give you a very mini review very quickly of this perk. For the best coach build, I would advise you buying all 4 categories in this. But don't you worry, I will have a second build in this same video that shows you how to get around this. But realistically, I don't think Rainmaker is very good. I don't think these are the perks that will make or break your dynasty. I think these perks are basically guardrails. To give you an analogy, it's kind of like if you ever take that person or that family member, that friend bowling, and you know they suck, so you put the guardrails up, that way they can't gutter the ball. That's kind of what Rainmaker is. I don't think Rainmaker was designed to be this cataclysmic, overpowered perk in the game, some stupid pay-to-win thing. No. I think EA viewed most of their audience as stupid, and I believe, go watch my other rants to why I believe that, but I think when they implemented the NIL, I don't think EA figured their player base could manage their money, and so these perks were basically there to have you spend less money. So when you look at these perks from the lens of they're just there to guardrail you from, you know, throwing your dynasty, which, by the way, you still can, right? These perks don't prevent you from failing, but they do heavily sway you to not failing. Dealmaker, increased recruiting influence from NIL offers. Basically, your money is worth slightly more than other people's money. Again, is that a bit scummy? Yeah, because if you're recruiting like 1, 2, or 3-star prospects, or not all of them, but there are some low-tier prospects where the hard cap is like $10 to $15. Obviously, that would be very overpowered because then your $10 to $15 is worth more than their $10 to $15. But if you're recruiting 3 stars and above, where you can choose how much money you give them, you can offset this by just giving them more money. So, like, example, I could put $50 on the prospect and you could put $75, you would still beat me. Is it annoying that you have to spend more than me? Yes. But does it automatically mean that I will win every single recruit I will ever go after? No. You can lose the CPU. You can lose to other players. Again, this just makes your money slightly more valuable. So if you are recruiting 2 people with the same pipelines, the same grades, and the same perks, and you have this perk and the other guy doesn't, you're probably going to win. But how often are you having recruiting situations where you have the same letters, the same pipelines, the same everything, and you're off by 1 or 2 perks? Not very much. So do I advise, if you have access to the perk, yes, buy it, obviously. But do you need this perk? No. Next, budget booster, increased dynasty points from your school grades. Basically, your blue points, your staff points, you will get more of that by doing your goals based off your grades. Again, do you need this? No, because you can achieve your goals in sim or through gameplay by just, you know, doing the thing you're supposed to. Is it nice to get a little more than the other person? Yes. Do you have to? No, you can still succeed not buying this. Staying power, increase NIL offer impact on risk of leaving players. This perk basically makes the money you're giving them to stay to prevent them from going to the portal or to prevent them from going into the draft, your money is worth more money. But spoiler alert, go watch my streams. If the player wants to leave, they're going to leave. That's how it works. I have had to give receivers and quarterbacks and tackles literally 1,000 NIL just to bring them back to their redshirt junior or redshirt senior year, right? This doesn't, in my opinion, do anything. All this really does is if a guy wants $5 or $10, you can get away with giving the guy $5, right? The little small things like that. But if they're a very big name player or a high overall player that wants to leave or hit the portal or get drafted, this doesn't make that big of a difference. So can you be successful without this? Yes. Do you need this? No. Lastly, contract incentives, increased dynasty points from 80 expectation goals. I might have confused this with the other one. It doesn't matter. The point still is you can do the challenges to get more points, but 3 stars have a select number of points, 2 stars, a select number of points. You're not going to cheese and speed run your way through the game. You're not going to be a 2-star with the budget of a 4-star. No. Generally, all the budgets stay the same. So are you going to get a couple more points? Yes. Can this technically matter? Yes. I guess technically speaking, you could argue there's a universe. There's a world out there in which you get an extra $10 for doing a challenge, and then that $10 gets put on a receiver, and then you beat your friend by $10 because you put. There's, I guess, technically a small chance that it matters, but again, if you're playing the computer, it won't matter, and if you're playing in an online league, it won't matter, right? Just do your challenges, get your rewards, and spend your money how you see fit. Doesn't have to always be on players. It could be for coordinators and other stuff. So for this build, I'm going to advise you buy it. But just know in the next coach build, I'm going to show you later on in this video, you don't need this. All of these are 100% optional. You can skip all of these. The other benefit is they're also really cheap. EA made these points 15 points per. So you're spending 60 tokens, which in the grand scheme of this game is not that many tokens, for very small buffs here and there that may or may not have some impact along the line of your rebuild. Maybe. Our next pre-order pay-to-win perk is Visionary. We don't have this because the game, as the time of me recording this VOD, I do not have Madden 27 unlocked. Otherwise, I would have bought, spoiler, some things in this perk. I'm going to tell you what I would recommend and why I would recommend that, even without getting my hands and testing said perk. But we'll go down piece by piece. Also, as you guys can see, they're all 15 points. So, again, very cheap. I think EA did this by design. Make them cheap, where they're slightly effective, but not the end of the world. Pro Pipeline and Visionary increase your player's draft stock. This is one of, if not the worst perk in the game. Never buy this. And if anyone ever recommends you ever buy Pro Pipeline, turn the video off. This perk is trash. I'm going to go back to the other thing I was just yapping about in the other 2 sections, but if your guy is like a 7th round pick or a 6th round pick, let's say they're an 84 overall elite dev, redshirt sophomore corner with 99 speed, and you got this guy super ready. He's going to be a monster when he steps onto the field, and then he just leaves to go be a draft pick. This perk could make that worse. Not could, it will make this worse. So again, I've not tested this perk, but how I would assume this perk works like the other perks similar to it is that if you're like a 6th or a 7th round draft pick, this perk will make you a 5th or a 5th or a 6th. If you were a 5th or a 6th, this perk will take you a 4th or a 3rd. If you were a 4th or a 3rd, this perk would probably make you a 2nd. If you were a 2nd, you're a 1st. So basically, it probably puts you up like 1 to maybe 2 tiers from what their base rate was. But that also is a hindrance to you because that makes them more valuable, more expensive. It's like, coach, he's not asking money for a 7th round pick. He's asking money for a 5th round pick. That may not sound like a massive difference, but with how the NIL works in this game, that could be several hundred points between those two. Or, example, he could be a fringe 4th or 3rd round pick. Now he's a 1st round pick. Now he needs 1,200 NIL to come back, and you just can't afford that. So this perk will absolutely kill you. Do not buy this perk. This perk will make your life a living hell. Yes, technically, could this perk be valuable for a speedrunning talent developer to get your 2 first-round picks quicker? Yes. But after you get talent developer and you get all that going, this perk would do nothing but kill you later on because it'll force you to spend more money on players to retain them because those players have now more value because this perk gave them more value. And if you do even, pay their demand of their needs for their money, they still can just say, screw you, I'm leaving anyways. So ignore this perk like the plague. Please do not buy this perk. If this perk is coded in the game to not make them be basically drafted early or leave financially because they want more money, then sure, keep it. It's a general perk, but I have a feeling I know how this perk will work, which will cost you more money long term. Just skip it. Next, practice makes perfect. This is a smash 100% buy this perk. If you guys don't know, you are required to basically practice every single week, whether you're simming or playing, even up to the week of the national championship. I've seen elite dev players get as many as 20 to 25 skill points per season just off practice, which is a lot of points considering EA giga nerfed player progression in this game this year. That's a lot of tokens. So I can only imagine how many more tokens you're going to get when you have this perk. Even if this perk only ends up getting you like 3 to 5 more tokens than the regular practice rate, that's still worth it. That 3 to 5 tokens can be spent on so many things most of the time that easily this perk is one of the worst perks in the game that'll actively kill you. This perk is basically a free, not really free, you got to pay for it, but you get my point. You just buy the perk and you get rewards. Because you're always going to have to practice. Even if you don't manually go in and practice and you simulate the practice, you're still practicing and your players are still going to get more progression. Hot start, increased chance of a player to start hot from practice. Again, hot start, cold start means nothing. You can literally gain and lose composure and gain and lose heat in one singular play. Skip this, it's trash. Next is signing bonus. This perk I will cover right now why I do believe this perk is going to be absolutely game breaking and you must buy this perk. One of the best perks in the game because this perk allows you to have extra coach points to have a more overpowered coach build than what I currently have, which I can't even fathom how that works. Later on, when I do have access to this perk, I will then test it out how it does and or doesn't function. But from the base description of signing bonus, increases your annual coach points awards from your program. Basically, what does that mean? If you click the back button, or I think it's square on PlayStation, I don't know buttons over there, but basically, if you back out and go to the menu and go over to your 80 expectations, you have these every single year. Right underneath your job security, as you guys can see, I will get 25 coach points that will be awarded annually for re-signing my contract and basically filling out my goals. When I accomplish these goals, I will get an extra tokens. Now, this is always not 25 tokens. I think when you first start a rebuild, it's like 5 or 10 tokens, but they do scale the higher program you create, the more stuff you get. From what that perk reads, you're going to get more than just 25 tokens. Now, by more, it could literally give you a token, which would be so EA of them to give you one singular token. But I'm going to assume they're going to give you more than one token. And since these are from, again, my current understanding, these are extra tokens. Last year, there was no way of spending more than 1,100 tokens. Your 1,100 cap was your cap. This year, the soft cap is 2,450, I do believe. But with all these re-uppings and coaching stuff, you can get more tokens, which also factors into this. I think I'm like, 16 years, 14 years? Where am I under one? This is like mid-video. Beastly yapping for you guys. A comment question of the day for all you guys who are still watching this far into the video. Let's leave a food emoji in the comments down below. Leave me whatever food emoji you most want to at that time of typing the comment. What do you want to eat? Whether it's pizza, ramen, eggs, whatever. What food do you want to eat at the time of me yapping in this video? But yeah, this build took me 16 years to replicate. So it took me 16 sim seasons of winning every game to make a level 100 coach, which technically means I have 14 years left of this save file. And because I have 14 years left of this save file, I technically have 14 more seasons to re-up my coach thing, which is 14 more times I can gain an extra 25 tokens, which again, 25 tokens may not sound like a ton, but if you re-up your contract every like 2 or 3 seasons, that's almost 100 extra tokens you get for just playing the game. And I believe that perk makes that number more. So if you were to have that perk from the very beginning of your rebuild, like example, a level 1 coach, over time, the longer and longer your rebuild goes on, the more and more value this perk would possess. So again, assuming EA doesn't really screw you and give you like a singular token, this perk is amazing. And if EA glazes you, and could you imagine if this perk like doubles it? Like, could you imagine if you go from getting like 25 points per contract re-up to like 50? That would be insane. So Again, got to wait for Madden 27 to launch, but when it does, I will go and test this perk. But for the time being, even without testing these perks, practice makes perfect, and signing bonus is amazing. Go ahead and buy these and skip Hot Start and skip Pro Pipeline if you guys can. Again, without testing it, I think those perks just sounds terrible. So maybe they're better than I expect, but I think they're trash. Now let's get to the rest of the coach build. So we are going to get into what is arguably the most contentious part of this video. Beastly, what is the most overpowered perk in this game in terms of one singular category? If you guys know, in CFB 25, it was base recruiter / elite recruiter. It took the crown as the best perk in the game. Then in CFB 26, my baby, my beloved talent developer was unequivocally the best coach / build in the game last year. And this year, Elite Recruiter has come to reclaim its throne as the king at the top. We'll cover Talent Developer a bit later on in this video, but Talent Developer was kind of giga nerfed, and it kind of breaks my heart that my favorite perk in the game is now worse. But we have Recruiter, Advanced Look, Persuasive Personality, Magnetic Personality, and Portal King. Those are the same 4 perks we had last year. However, if you guys notice, EA kind of moved them in different areas, right? Tier 1 Advanced Look is the exact same as it was last year. With this build, now that we can actually cover the discount, you do have to spend 200 points now in base recruiter to buy elite recruiter. Last year, that was not a requirement, which shout out EA for making me waste tokens. I appreciate that. And so you might be wondering, Beastly, just spend 200 points and then go get for elite recruiter. What's the big problem? Well, that's the thing. If you're doing this build the way you're supposed to, you can buy perks on discount. So example, buying base recruiter for me, which I would recommend for everything except for kicker and punter. I know I have stuff in kicker and punter. Tier 1 and tier 2 for this is actually free. So there you go. It cost me 0 points to buy tier 1 and tier 2. And tier 3, I did waste, I think, 10 tokens or 5 tokens on it. Again, we'll cover that later on where I waste these points, but it was a waste. Don't advise that. But if you just spend the normal 200 tokens to unlock elite recruiter, you have to spend... You will get far less value than if you buy everything on discount, as you guys can see. Because I bought everything at max discount, I was able to get not 1, not 2, but all the way up to tier 3, which is Magnetic Personality. Not the best perk in the game, but again, if I have to spend points here, I might as well get the best bang for my buck. So I got tiers 1 through 3 for QB, because you never know when that generational QB pops up with that 99 speed, that 99 throw power. I've seen some crazy people spawn in my time. And if there is a generational QB, I want to have first dibs on him. Next, did tiers 1 through 3 for D-line. I will cover individually what these tiers mean momentarily, but I got that, as you guys can see. I skipped running backs, I skipped linebackers. This was just because of token constraint. Again, didn't really do my math properly, but if I could, I would buy tiers 1 through 3 here and 1 through 3 here. I got tiers 1 through 3 for the secondary, for the receivers, and O-line. But basically, why would you do that, right? Obviously, you want tier 1 to recruit. Recruiting is a big aspect of this game. You don't want to waste times on bums. Shout out my soon-to-be series of the Potential Prodigy series, in which I show you guys how to scout better players. That's coming soon. Still writing on data points and yada, yada, yada. But basically, you're always going to buy tier 1. Always. That's a non-negotiable. 2, Persuasive Personality. You are kind of forced to buy this perk. Never, ever, 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 ever sway your person. It's never worth it. It's not worth changing their stuff. Just hard sell them. And if you're not good at the hard sell, just send the house. Swaying has been one of the most useless mechanics in this game. And spoiler alert, it's still trash. However, Magnetic Personality is kind of the best bang for our buck. I could have went all the way to tier 4 for Portal King for a few things like corner and quarterback, but I don't like the portal. I nerfed the portal. I think in every rebuild I do, I've always nerfed the portal. Portal with the default settings is way too overpowered. You can basically make a national championship level team in 1 to 2 seasons, regardless of your school with the portal. I hate it, so I nerf it. I also primarily enjoy recruiting in high school, so if I don't use the portal, what's the point of Portal King? If you do use the portal, buy to tier 4 and skim out from other sections. But obviously, we've covered the recruiting less hours to recruit, and for tier 1, to click the button less, which trust me, your thumb will thank me for how much you will not be spamming the A button to then scout said players. Persuasive Personality increases the chance to sway. Don't do that. And then the Magnetic Personality, which used to be, I believe, tier 2, that now is tier 3. I think EA made tier 3 used to be tier 2, and then tier 4 used to be tier 3. I think it doesn't matter. Magnetic personality slightly increase your initial interest. And like I got into a lot of arguments with people last year, this perk, it kind of does the same thing as the pro pipeline does, where if you were like the player's 10th school on their board, if you bought this perk, it would make you their like 7th or 8th school. If you were their like 7th or 8th team and you bought this perk, now you're like their top 5. Like you're probably that 6th or 5th team. And then obviously if you're their 5th or 6th team, you bought the perk, you're probably now top 3. And obviously if you're already their top 3, now you're their probably number 1 prospect. If you are buying Dream School, you have to buy Magnetic Personality on every single person, which is just annoying, but you have to get the actual bang for your buck. Otherwise, this perk is kind of useless because even if they don't have interest in you, once when you're a good enough program and you buy the other perks in this build, you kind of can just recruit whoever you want, even though EA also recently just ultra nerfed recruiting. The new changes they made where they made about on average 400 less 3-stars spawn and on average about 100 4-stars spawn less. Approximately 500 to 600 players will no longer spawn in recruiting. Absolutely horrible change, EA. Also, at the same time, they changed recruiting by making the CPU far more aggressive at recruiting than they used to. Horrible change. That also kind of inherently makes Recruiter and Elite Recruiter more valuable. Aside from the other big thing I will cover momentarily, why this perk is valuable. With the new changes to recruiting, you got to recruit better now. You have to. Otherwise, you're going to get hoed. It'll be week 5 or week 6, and like all the 5, 4, and 3 stars will be off the board, and then you're just screwed. So you got to have these perks for that reason. The other big reason why I think Recruiter is objectively and subjectively the best perk in the game is because this perk saves you money. I always get asked questions in my live streams. Basically, how do you have 6,000, 7,000, 8,000 NIL just chilling in the bank and you're not spending it? Well, that's mostly because I recruit very well and I don't waste my money, right? I can have a $2,000 OC, a $2,000 DC, max facilities, and still bring in between 20 to 25 5-stars and be fine. The reason is because I don't have to spend full money on any of them, right? I could drop their neutral offer, and because of the perks in this section and other perks like lasting impressions for the CEO category, I can just out recruit people. That I can just do that, right? Ohio State might have to spend 300 NIL just to beat me, in which I can spend 75 and still win. So it may not sound like a ton individually, but over time, if you're saving like 50 to 100 NIL per prospect, you do that over 35 prospects, I'm saving thousands of NIL for nothing. And so you kind of need the base interest kind of, along with having a good program, other perks, and all that fun stuff. Now let's go get into Elite Recruiter. This is actually the main reason why I'm able to buy things for cheap. This is really simple. Buy everything tier 1 to tier 4, except for kicker and punter. Like, it doesn't matter. You need to buy it. The only exceptions I could argue, or I could hear the argument for, is skipping out on a running back. If you guys don't know, there is a overabundance of running backs that do spawn every single year. Whether they're 5, 4, or 3-star backs, you can go into a cycle and literally recruit like 100 to 200 running backs that are 3-star and above. More than likely, you can easily probably find 5 of them that are really, really, really good. The main reason why I buy all these perks is the just in case, basically. I don't want to be streaming a rebuild or doing a challenge in which something pops up. Like, example, I guess I can go ahead and flash it on screen now. So this is a small example of what I meant by, like, I always buy everything in Elite Recruiter, even if like things like running back, for example, or quarterback. You don't need 15 running backs on your roster. You don't need 15 quarterbacks on your roster, right? You don't. But just in case things like, people like Emmanuel Dahl, who spawn, is a generational running back, I want to have the best chance to recruit the generational prospects that spawn when they spawn. So obviously, in terms of just sheer efficiency, buying it for the O-line and or secondary is the most efficient because you're getting them for more than a few spots. Whereas quarterback or running back, you're only buying them for 1 or 2 spots. However, again, whether it's an online or offline league, if there's a generational player that spawns and you lose him, that's going to suck. And you would think to yourself, wow, if only I spent the extra 70 points in Elite Recruiter, I would have probably got this prospect. And just to show you, I've gotten so many of these generational prospects. I've had a blast recruiting in this game thus far. Here is another generational athlete I found. 92 speed, 91 hit power, 93 acceleration, 5-star athlete speed rusher. High 70s for the power move and finesse move, so I can move him however I want with bronze recoup and plat quick jump with plat winning time base. Yeah, this dude was an absolute stud, and as you guys can see, his expected NIL was only $100. So I was able to recruit this kid with $100, which is crazy because other schools I was fighting with were spending probably hundreds of dollars, and I was spending like 100 if that. So generally, just go ahead, buy everything in Elite Recruiter. It may not be worth your money in that moment, but when you do eventually find that crazy 4-star or 5-star, you know in the back of your mind, I'm going to win him because I have the perks other people just don't have. So there you go. Actually, I'm going to go ahead and show one more example of generational athletes. Here's a 94 speed will linebacker with plat house call and bronze robber with 81 zone. This dude was legit, I think like an 83 or 84 overall out the box. Like again, and as you guys can see, I bought him for $80. He was $80. It was just insane. Love this build. Cannot recommend this enough. Back to the video. No more yapping. We have ideal situation, boost to ideal pitch grades for the specific role. Basically, the 3 green check marks you have for your thing, that is more valuable for you than other people's green check marks, which is nice. Then we have the upsell. My school grades have a larger impact on the QB. These are really good for when your two schools are competing and you have the same grades. Like you might have A+, A+, A+. They might have A+, A+, A+. If you have this perk and they don't, your A+s now matter more. Very, very, very useful. Also helps with your other grades too. It's like, example, you can turn probably a B into an A or like a C into a B by having this perk. So very, very, very useful. Next, most influential recruiting actions have a bigger impact on the person. Basically, everything you do, like send the house or hard sell, everything you do, every action, contact their social media, the 5, 10, 25, those different stuff. All of those give you a more of a bonus that stacks on top of your pipeline, that stacks with the CEO perk lasting impressions. Just generally everything stacks. So it makes the thing you were already doing even more impressive. And then finally, the creme de la creme, the best thing in this category, always be recruiting. Increase your weekly recruiting hours. With just your head coach and no coordinators, you get up to 65 hours. If you remember how lasting impressions work, every 10 hours you spend into a prospect, you get extra influence. 5 divided by 10, or 50 divided by 10 is 5. That's 5 extra notches or 5 extra influence. With 65, you get 6. And if you have coordinators, this can go up to 80 hours on a prospect, which is just insane. That's 8 extra influence ticks with lasting impressions. It's nuts. Just the entire, in terms of bang for your buck, Elite Recruiter is just so efficient. It saves you money. It helps with recruiting. Hell, it even helps with the transfer portal because all of this stuff applies there as well, even though it doesn't explicitly say it does. It helps with the transfer portal. This perk, I think, is unequivocally the best perk in the game, Elite Recruiter. And however you want to, min-max like I did, or just go straight into it, this perk is a basically a must on every build. And if you're not buying Elite Recruiter, you're just not playing the game right. I promise you. It's a massive thing. Again, aside from the money thing, just recruiting is a whole thing. You got to have it. Next, we're going to get in probably what I would consider to be the second best perk category in the game. Next, we have my beloved, my baby girl and talent developer. Yes, she got gutted, and now you have to buy all the way up to tier 4 to buy Pay It Forward, which, if you guys didn't know, Pay It Forward was the most busted perk in CFB 26. Basically, every single person you got recruit or drafted, regardless of where they got drafted, the current players on your roster would gain XP for that, or basically they would gain tokens, and your dev traits factored into that. So last year, I was on average getting about 200 to 225 tokens per year, which I was able to maintain literally like 50 to 60 plus overall players on my team, or not overall, but 50 to 60 plus individuals on my team who were 95 plus overall the entire year. Pay It Forward was objectively the best perk in the game last year, or one of the best perks in the game, specifically in Talent Developer, was the best perk. The issue that I believe last year it was tier 2. This year it's now tier 4. So this year it will cost a tremendous amount of basic financial dumping of your tokens to get the same value as last year. The other massive thing, which is the reason why Talent Developer is no longer the best perk in the game and why it's now number 2, is because player progression was absolutely gutted this year. This year, on average, I'm getting under 100 tokens damn near every single year. So again, depends on your dev trait, whether it's impact dev, normal dev, elite dev, or star dev. But even with like the max build you can do, your player progression has just been neutered. Furthermore, the devs went in and changed what the stat requirements are for various archetypes. So, example, pass protectors last year didn't care about run blocking. All they cared about was pass protection and IQ. This year, run blocking does factor a little bit into it. And so you could put the same upgrades onto a prospect in 27 and then put that onto a prospect in 26. And in 26, it'll be like a 99 overall. And in 27, they'll be like an 84. So, with the Giga Nerf to coach progression, the Giga Nerf player progression, your players will not be as high of an overall as they used to be. And trust me, I've stacked this with coordinators. I've done everything except for changing the base XP rates. You will not have prospects spawn like last year, or have prospects like last year, where I had just rows and rows and rows of 99 just maxed out dudes, which to me I took a lot of pride in. I enjoyed it. People who watch my streams enjoyed it. And generally, I really don't understand why EA nerfed player progression. Like, why have players not have fun playing their game, right? Who cares? Oh, there's too many 99s. Well, guess what? Now all those 99s are now 88s. So guess what? Everybody's team are filled with nothing but 88s. Congratulations. Inflation, there you go. You took the number, you changed the number, the problem's still there. The stats are still there. It's just now it looks different. It's just, I hate it. So the combination of the fact that they nerfed player progression and they nerfed the how many tokens you have to dump into Talent Developer to get actual bang for your buck, it has now been placed below Elite Recruiter. However, this is still the second best perk in the game, and I would always advise you buying it just off of the tier 4 pay it forward alone. But I just covered why that's so good. Also, I forget if I mentioned, but it also stacks. So like if you get 5 receivers drafted, that's 5 times the perk will trigger. So all your current receivers all will get the 5 times, multiplier. So there was a year last year, I forget which, I think it might have been the Rice rebuild, but there was a year I had 7 receivers drafted. I had 7. Before we got to the training week, all of my receivers on my team had the token cap of 255. So then going into the training, I had to spend 200 tokens. Then we did the training and got another 200 tokens. I spent legitimately like 500 or 600 tokens in like a 2-week stretch. Literally, I had players with max stats, max abilities, and they were sitting on like 100 to like 200 tokens. I just couldn't spend. They had more tokens than I had spots to spend. Very funny. But either way, everything stacks. This perk, again, pay it forward is very good because things stack. It's less good for quarterbacks and running backs because generally speaking, you're not going to have many quarterbacks get drafted or multiple running backs. But this shit is incredibly overpowered for stuff like O-line. Example, each person on your O-line can proc this. So you have a left tackle, left guard, center, right guard, and right tackle all get drafted. This will proc 5 times. For example, with a secondary, let's say you get 3 corners and 2 free safeties and 1 strong safety drafted. That's 6 players. Pay it forward will proc 6 times. So obviously for stuff like, secondary, for O-line, for receiver, for D-line, this is significantly better because you could have multiples of the same thing drafted to then proc the perk multiple times. For stuff, again, like quarterback, running back, and linebacker, you shouldn't have that many of them drafted per year. So if you want to skip it on these 3, you totally can. But for me, because I like to mass send as many first-round picks as I can, I'm going to buy it. But I could totally see the min-max of just not buying these 3 because you're just not sending that many pro. So what's the point of getting 2 pay it forward? But again, for my own mental sanity, I'm going to go ahead and do that because EA nerfed the progression. The next thing is last year, we really didn't get to use it very much. And that is Home Sweet Home is a boost to a pipeline bonus for your players. Now, last year, I did calc this, that it was about a 25% buff. Now, last year, there was no point in getting to tier 3 or tier 4, so I never did. But this year, considering you basically have to buy 2 tier 4, tiers 1, 2, and 3 are, you have to buy them anyway, so what does it matter? What do they do? But now that you're forced to buy tier 3, this is a substantial increase to your recruiting. And the only downside is you have to have a pipeline there to have this perk work. But again, if you have lasting impressions and you have elite recruiter, and even if you have a tier 1 or a tier 2 pipeline, this does trigger. So in a perfect universe, if you get that god stack of like a tier 5 pipeline with a recruit that wants to be there, you got 65 hours plus to spend on them. You got lasting impressions. You got home sweet home. You got all of elite recruiter. Now are you guys starting to see why about 45 minutes ago in this video, I was showing you guys that you could instantly recruit a class within 2 to 3 weeks? This is why. If you follow the perks in this build, you will be an absolute recruiting demon. And whether it's against people or the computer, it's not even going to be fair. You can just do so many nasty things. Very quickly, we will cover Field Study and QB Whisper. I believe Field Study was moved from Architect to Talent Developer this year. Quarterbacks earn additional XP for in-game goals. That's things like touchdowns, I believe awards and stuff like that. It's an okay tier 1 perk, but again, it really doesn't matter what the perk does because you're going to buy it anyways. But earning more XP is not bad considering all XP or all things that do earn XP do stack. So more XP is never a bad thing. And then you have the QB / the positional group Whisper. Freshman and sophomore players progress faster. What does that mean? They get more tokens. They earn more tokens than the average player. And again, I might be wrong on this, but I believe how this worked in 26, and I doubt EA changed it for 27. Again, could be wrong, but I believe this counted as long as the word freshman or the word sophomore was on the prospect. Meaning, you could have a freshman, then have a freshman redshirt him. That counts as 1 year. Year 2, he's a redshirt freshman. That counts as 2 years. And then year 3, he'll be a redshirt sophomore, which would count. So this perk would technically proc 3 times, 3 of his 5 years. And even though it doesn't explicitly say freshman or sophomore, I think this perk works with juniors. And what I mean by that is I think how this perk is coded, not how it's written, is it basically applies to the first 3 years of he or she's, not going to assume genders in the big 2-6, but basically that prospect's progression is increased for 3 seasons, which typically that would be their freshman, redshirt freshman, and redshirt sophomore years, but it could be redshirt sophomore and freshman. Again, I could be wrong on that, but regardless, even if it doesn't count, I know for a fact it does count for freshmen. I know it does count for redshirt freshmen, and I know it counts for redshirt sophomore. So this perk is insane. Again, everything stacks. This stacks with Motivator. It stacks with Architect. It stacks with Pay It Forward. It just stacks. So you can just start printing very, very good players, especially in a game where getting good players is very, very, very hard. And that should be a pretty decent description of what perks you should and shouldn't buy in Talent Developer. Again, this year it went from being the best perk, or last year it went from being the best perk to the second best perk. I still advise buying up to tier 4 for almost everything. But if you were to stop, I could totally see a world in which you go for QB, you go for running back, and maybe you go for linebacker, and you buy tier 1, you buy tier 2, but you stop there. You don't buy tier 3, you don't buy tier 4. But again, just to be safe, I would buy everything because there's really no harm in buying everything. There's not. So who knows? Some years you might have like 5 running backs drafted. Other years you might have 0. So it might offset in the grand scheme of things. But now we are going to get into what is, I believe, the best base perk in the game when starting your rebuild. The end of what is considered, in my opinion, the good perks is going to be base Motivator. I think without a doubt, if you just do a pound for pound comparison of base Motivator, base Recruiter, and base Tactician, base Motivator absolutely slaps it out of the way compared to the other two. It's just by far a more dominant win over everything else. Now, if you're including the other stuff, not so much, but in terms of just the base perks, base Recruiter kind of sucks, base Tactician blows. This is, the least sucky of the bunch. Obviously, you're going to buy up to tier 3 on everything for the off-season training boost. I guess I can quickly cover tier 1 and tier 2. Tier 1 extra gear. The group of the player you purchase will get a boost to toughness, stamina, and injury. Toughness is a huge secret stat in this game that most people don't know about. Toughness directly correlates with stamina and fatigue and wear and tear. So the more stamina you have on your player, the more wear and tear can chew through it. but the more toughness you have, the more you can ignore wear and tear. So generally speaking, if you can have high toughness, I would advise it. But this perk, boosts toughness, stamina, injury. If you play in sim leagues like I do, where injuries and stamina is turned off or wear and tear is turned off, the perk does nothing. So depending on what settings you play on, this perk may be really good. If you're in like a very competitive online league where they have the injury sliders turned up, this perk's really good. But depending on your settings, this perk is either really good or useless. For me, in most of my rebuilds, it's useless, but to each their own. Next, we have Hot Hand. That player group will stay hot through timeouts and quarter changes across the games. Again, you can gain heat and lose heat, gain composure and lose composure in as little as one play. So Hot Hand does literally nothing. Congratulations, you start hot. The very first game you call inside zone. The other person / computer shoots your gap. You lose 4 yards on inside zone. Now you lost your heat. So I can see the reason why you'd want to start hot, but thank God tier 3 is so good, because tier 1 and tier 2 are basically useless depending on a few factors, but tier 3 is pretty good. As you guys can see, I bought up to tier 4 for this. Again, I guess now I can finally cover it. So I didn't do my math properly. Again, as I showed you guys, you could purchase things for up to 10 points cheaper, which you may be like, Beastly, who cares about saving 10 points with bundle discount? If you save 10 points per category, that's 40 points per, right? So instead of me having to spend 130 tokens on a category, I could spend 90, right? When I was originally doing my math, I was like, okay, 90, or I did 130, 130 is 260, 260 and 260 is like 5 something. I don't have 500 tokens. I have like 480. I don't have enough. I'm just going to punt the rest of the Master Motivator for this category. Obviously, I did my math wrong. It's 90 and 90 is 180. 180 and 180 is 360. I had plenty of tokens to buy all of base Motivator that I needed and all of Master Motivator. So if I could just strip out the useless perks in this build that I've mentioned and just slap them here, I would. But yeah, also don't buy tier 4. Locked in. Your players start the fourth quarter hot in close games. Again, useless. You can gain heat and lose heat in one play. It's very fluke. Don't do it. Also, don't waste points in the kicker and punter stuff. I did that for the memes, but it's not worth it. I would buy the stuff down here. I also believe this was either wasted tokens for the Master Motivator equivalent, or this was free. I forget if it was free or not, but either way, I don't buy this stuff unless you have to, because special teams is such a small portion of this game. Let's quickly cover the Master Motivator buffs. Quick recovery. Players recover wear and tear damage faster. Wear and tear is awful in this game, right? If you played online or if you played this game, if you get cut stick by a user or a CPU player 2 or 3 times a game, your player's dead. So anything that increases or that recovers wear and tear faster is a massive W. Again, I turn off wear and tear in a few of my leagues, especially when I'm simming. But if you don't have wear and tear turned off, and that's a full set, staple of your build, buy this, right? If you are playing in a league where there is tremendous wear and tear, or someone is being a D-bag and running around with like 5 aftershocks on their defense, just being a menace to society, buy quick recovery. Highly advise it. Tier 2, Icy Veins. Your players start with a composure boost. Again, this does nothing. You can gain and lose heat. You can gain and lose composure in as little as one play. Icy Veins, Icy whatever, trash. Next, tier 3, Family Atmosphere. Players are less likely to transfer. This perk, massive. Transfer portal sucks, right? Again, as I mentioned earlier, you can pay them the right money. You can turn off the transfer portal. You could do everything right. You could buy the perk and program builder that will prevent them or reduce the odds of them going pro, and they will still just leave. This perk will significantly reduce the chance of them leaving. So even though I do nerf my transfer portal in my rebuilds and stuff, if you're playing in an online league or you're a offline player where you don't nerf the transfer portal, buy this stuff. Your players will be less likely to leave. It's very good. I don't have the exact number or the exact percentage chance because, again, I do kind of fiddle with my portal settings, so I don't really need this most of the time. But again, if you are playing and you are min-maxing this build, you could buy everything for cheap. You are up to this far, not because of tiers 1, tier 2, or 3. You're getting up to tier 4 because everybody eats, increases all XP gains for blank QBs, receivers, RBs, whatever. This multiplier stacks with everything. As it again says, it's not that it's just giving you more training buff. It's buffing the training buff. The off-season training buff is buffing that. This perk buffs pay it forward. This perk buffs everything else. This perk buffs if you get XP Architect 2, it's buffing it. It's just buffing your in-game goals. Basically, if you earn XP from doing said thing, tier 4 in Master Motivator buffs that. So the fact there's a perk in this game that just buffs your other buffs is insane. Again, especially considering this is a game in which player progression has been neutered into oblivion. Making your players better is very important because the CPU will struggle with doing that and you won't. You will be able to recruit like a demon, get nothing but the best of the best, and then you can turn those best of the best into nothing but 95 plus overall players. So yeah, that's basically the build. Again, if I could do my math properly, I would have bought all 4 of these. But again, I wasted perks in Program Builder, I wasted perks in Recruiter, and I wasted perks in CEO because I was like, hell, I got a weird number of perks left. I don't have enough to finish. I'll just punt the build. No, don't do that. Pay attention to what I did. If you buy everything at max discount, you could buy basically all of Base Motivator, all of Master Motivator, all of Talent Developer, all of Elite Recruiter, and most of Base Recruiter, and have a disgusting build. Next, we are going to get into the more hot topic of this video, which are the 3 stooges, the 3 stunts, the 3 duds, whatever terminology you want to use. Basically, the 3 perks works in the game, and there is no perk anywhere near as bad as Tactician. Let's quickly, very, very, very quickly cover why Tactician is the worst perk category in the game, point blank, period. So I had a massive long rant on one of my previous streams breaking down why Tactician is so bad. Highly advise you go watch that rant on that stream. I will probably have it linked in the description down below, but the Spark Notes, the shortened version of the reason why that rant was so fun, it has to do with thresholds. Everything you do in this game for every EA Sports title is based off thresholds. You can't throw, like, example. An easy example I can give you is with quarterbacks. The gap between a quarterback with 84 throw short and 85 throw short may only sound like it's one number, one digit, but it's tremendous. Below 84, or below 85, 84 and below, you don't meet any of the requirements, meaning you're going to be overthrowing things like crazy. Even if it's a 2-yard drag or a 2-yard slant directly in front of your QB, he will just huck that thing. But when you hit 85, you activate the bare minimum threshold for throwing the ball, so he will become magically far more accurate. That works all the way with pretty much almost every stat in the game. So example, if you have 90 man coverage and you have 88 man coverage, that +2 would get you to 90, which would be a big deal. 90 is the soft cap for man coverage and zone coverage. So if you have like 87 man or 87 zone and you get that +2 to man and +2 zone, which I guess I can go ahead and scroll over to the section where you guys can see that, that would do nothing, right? A DB that has 89 zone coverage or a 89 man coverage would play the exact same as an 88 or an 87 or an 85 guy. They would play the exact same. There's everything below 90, and then there's 90. So, a vast majority of these things that are, you know, the +2 stats you're getting don't do anything. Again, we'll just do offensive line, for example. I think the soft cap for them is also 90. So if you have below 90 run block finesse, it does nothing. So like 86 to like 88 does nothing. That's you will notice no difference. Now, for some reason, if you are on the fence and your guy is like right there away from hitting the thresholds, then yeah, the perk's okay. But I don't hardly ever recruit bums. And so for me, I can hit these thresholds with flying colors pretty easily. So for me, I don't need the perks. And generally speaking, if you're half decent at recruiting and developing your players, you don't need that either. The other massive problem with these categories is most of the time you're getting stats that just don't do anything. As an example, I can show you is back with secondary. If you buy the tier 1 for DB ratings boost, they unlock +2 spin, +2 juke, and +2 ball carrier vision. That does nothing. Right? Most DBs, their base juke and their base spin is so below 90 that the +2 will do nothing. But even if the +2 was like really cool, your DB only has good spin, juke, and ball carrier vision unless they're on kick or punt return when they pick the ball off. So why are you buying a perk for the very rare chance of that DB picking the ball off. You can play whole user games or CPU games and never have a secondary person pick the ball off. Or if they do get an interception, they're like out of bounds or like a Hail Mary type thing where the game's over. It's like, congratulations, your stat that was supposed to help your kick return stuff didn't really do anything. I guess we can stick on the same topic with the DBs. With tier 2, with boost to catch and jumping as a rating doesn't do anything. I don't want to like blow people's bubble here, but jumping is irrelevant, right? I could be wrong, but I do believe every player has the same jump range in terms of inches off the ground. It only changes based off your height. So a 6'3" person will jump as far off the ground as like a 5'11" person. So making your +2 jumping won't do anything. And plus, if you're using a linebacker, linebackers don't jump anyways. It's a very well-known EA fact with the gameplay that linebackers just don't jump. So you could throw at linebackers in most gameplays because they don't jump. Now, safeties, they can, jump 10 feet off the ground and pick you off, crazy stuff, but linebackers don't. So now this does, impact corners, but you get the point. Catching also, there's a catch meter in this game. If you green your catch meter, the catching stat no longer becomes relevant. So if you're cheating and you're using like a Zen or whatever, you can just do that. And or if your guy's base catching's high enough, it won't really matter. So man cover, zone coverage, already covered that stuff. Again, if they're on the 88-ish range, not even ish, exactly 88 on the dot, it's worth it. If not, it's a scam. D-line / linebackers is pretty decent. Everything you get there does kind of matter. But again, you have to be on the thresholds, which is like the main problem. We can look at other fun stuff. Example, right, with like QBs. Tier 3 is the mobile stuff. You get access to bonus juke, spin, and ball carrier vision. That only really impacts the pure runner because most dual threats and pocket passers will never achieve high enough juke or spin or ball carrier vision to really have that matter. And then backfield creators are kind of 50-50. So if you just look at all of these perks, most of the ones, the things they're buffing suck. And the stuff that doesn't suck isn't getting buffed to a substantial amount that's worth it. Even last time, I'll be kicking the perk Wallace down here. EA even made this garbage cheaper than the other ones just to kind of help. It's still trash. It was trash last year. It was trash in 25. It's trash this year. Just don't buy this perk. If anyone recommends you buying Tactician, click the video off. This perk sucks. But as you guys can see with QB, it buffs short and medium, right? It doesn't buff throw deep. I would argue throw deep is the most important stat for quarterbacks aside from throw power. And this perk doesn't even buff throw deep. So throw short and throw medium, from my experience, are two numbers that you can very easily get to above 95, which for quarterbacks, their soft cap is 95. So this perk sucks. Don't do it. It's a waste of your tokens. However, that being said, Scheme Guru, on the other hand, top 5 best perks in the game. Scheme Guru is insane, and it's a true travesty that Scheme Guru is locked behind Tactician filth. I wish Scheme Guru was an architect and wish they would just move things around because that would make things a little better, but Scheme Guru is really good. And the reason why it's really good is because these buffs the game provides you ignores stats. So as an easy example, we'll look at tier 3 and tier 4 ground and pound offense. Keep blockers longer and to the whistle. Reduce defenders' ability to disengage from run blocks and reduces defenders' ability to shed run blocks. This basically means the block shed rating for the defender means far less than what it did for your blockers. So that means you can have a guy, for example, with 80 run blocking, and he will block far better than what an 80 overall run blocker would because you have this perk, right? And you could only imagine how overpowered this is if you actually have a good run blocker in a running offense with this perk active, right? Same thing with we'll do the catching. This is like really overpowered last year, and I can only want to imagine how overpowered this is this year with the green catching. But if you get tier 3, which stretch the field, increases the catchability for passes anywhere on the field. So basically, whether you're throwing a 2-yard check down or a 75-yard Hail Mary, it increases the chance of your dude just catching the ball. Doesn't matter if he has 12 catching or 99, he's going to catch the ball, or more likely catch the ball. Stack that with this new mechanic with the green catching, and you get tier 3 stretch the field. I'm almost 100% sure you could blindly throw streaks the entire game like you already could, but your green window would be like the size of a quarter. It'd be massive on your screen. The bar would be huge. So unfortunately, Scheme Guru, very good. If you're in a very, very, very competitive online league, please buy Scheme Guru. You will destroy people who are better than you because the game is playing the game for itself. Basically, the game will play the game itself while you just sit there and watch. If you're far better, if you're in an online league and you're far better than everyone else, let's say you're playing with your friends or your family, don't buy this stuff. You're good enough. You'll do fine. But if you're in like a money league or a tournament and you know the guys are equal to you or better, buy Scheme Guru. This stuff is insane. I bought Scheme Guru last year in my Indiana Online Dynasty, and aside from me liking to run the ball, I had really good blockers, which made no sense because I had nothing but pass protecting linemen who could run block, and that's because I kind of bought this stuff. So this stuff is really good. Again, if you're in an online league where it's super cutthroat, super competitive, everyone's really good, if you have Scheme Guru, that may or may not be the difference in you winning or losing. Again, assuming your opponent also doesn't have it. And if you're in a league where you're just blowing everybody out, don't buy this. It's just bad manners, right? You don't need to beat someone by 150 points, right? If you're already winning by 60 points, you're fine. And then if you're simming like I do, this does nothing for sim. This only works if you're playing the game. So in those circumstances, for most offline leagues, again, versus the computer, don't buy this. You just get better at the game. You can beat any computer by 1,000 points. I can promise you that. But if you do get the situation in which you can buy these for relatively cheap, or you skip other sections and you were doing like an online build, I would totally skip out in sections in Talent Developer and skip out sections of Elite Recruiter and Program Builder. And basically, I would take everything I did for Master Motivator and just shove it down here. I think Base Motivator is good enough. I think Talent Developer is good enough. I think Elite Recruiter is good enough. And I would throw those extra points here. But again, if you're not playing an online league, these perks virtually do nothing. If you're simulating, they do nothing. If you're fast simming, they do nothing. If you're slow simming, they do something then. But how often are you slow simming games or doing coach mode and not playing the game? You know, so Scheme Guru, very good. Very good. Unfortunately, Tactician, one of the worst perk categories in the game by far. Next, we will piggyback off of one just absolute abomination to another. If you guys watch my streams, you would know that I don't like Strategist, and I actively get hate from all the Strategist fans, aka the cult of the orange that I call it, because there are some degenerates who do stand this perk like it's the second coming of Jesus Christ. It is insane. I had a whole deep dive, a whole mini series on this perk last year, and I just wasted like 3 hours on a live stream like a week or two ago, basically testing Mind Reader tier 4 for Strategist. The point of Strat is to buy Mind Reader. Don't hit me with the nonsense of, well, actually, I buy it for this. No, just don't buy it. Someone lied to me on one of my previous streams where they're like, they changed Strategist to where now Mind Reader activates per button click, not once. No. I tested this perk thoroughly. I ran this perk a few hundred times on a stream, doing the math. Last year, at a approximate 25 to 30% chance of triggering. This year, it's still a 25 to 30% chance to trigger. It's garbage. No, I'm not gonna, well, Beastly, if you stack it. No, the point of this is to stand on your own 2 feet. This perk does not function unless you pair it with coordinators, which fundamentally makes it a bad perk. But yeah, so Mind Reader trash. It's a 25 to 30% chance to see a dev trait. And even if you do see a dev trait, you're not guaranteed a good dev trait. Another small snippet is while I ran that experiment, which again, I will have that linked also in the description down below. So if you guys want to go watch me do it live, you guys can. But there is an inbuilt mechanic in this game when you're scouting where they do show you a red or green gem. A green gem guarantees a dev trait, and a red gem gives you a 95% chance that person is going to be normal dev or impact dev, aka the 2 worst dev traits in the game. If you just simply used the inbuilt mechanic of looking for green gem or looking for red gem, you would have a higher hit rate than this perk. I don't have the analytics pulled up directly in front of me, but I believe, again, the perk hit rate I know was 30%, and I believe the green and red gems were like 35 to 40%. So just simply not buying the perk and just using the base game mechanics, which are free, by the way. It costs you $0.00 in real life and in game to just see the color green good, see the color red bad. So the fact this perk isn't even as good as the base game mechanic, trash. So this perk, again, I was yapping my stream. This perk should have got Giga Buff to like base kit, like 50 to maybe 65%. And then if you stacked it with coordinators, it should be 100%. I think if they made the base percent higher and stacked it with coordinators to where you had 100% chance to see all of their dev traits, I could justify that. But you're really sacrificing an arm and a leg for a 30% chance just to tell you some random 3-star is a normal dev guy or a random bad 4-star is a normal dev guy. Like, it's just, you don't have to do that. Also, if you just play the game enough, you'll learn what the good player stat lines are. So tier 4, trash. Next, we have tier 3, lower the bar. This is probably the most valuable thing in the entire category. Lowering the deal breaker does impact how much money you owe them with NIL, does impact them hitting the portal and all that fun stuff. I will tell you that tier 3, it's good, right? It reduces it, I believe, by a full letter. And if you do stack it with coordinators, that's 3 full letters. However, the main 2 deal breakers you will have issues with is always playing time and always playing style. Playing style and playing time are the 2 most problematic deal breakers because some weeks they will be an A+ and you'll be great. Next sim week, next gameplay leak, whatever, they'll drop to an F and then you're screwed. This perk, lower the bar, even if you triple stack it, will not fix that problem. If you get hoed by the game or you get hoed by EA and your letter goes from being great to an F, this will not fix that. So the fact that this perk doesn't really fix the 2 problematic ones, and in my opinion, the other ones are really not a big deal, right? Like, early on, champ contender might be a problem, but like if you're good enough and you play long enough, you'll win enough to where that becomes an A. Your brand exposure will eventually become an A. Almost every grade eventually becomes an A. So the fact that you would pretty much be buying this exclusively for the 2 problematic ones and it doesn't even fix the problematic ones, that's not good. That's quite frankly really bad. And the fact you're spending this much just to have something help you on things you don't need help with, not good. Very quickly, I will cover making friends and hospitality. I haven't technically tested these 2 perks to see if they've been changed from last year, but considering almost nothing has changed from last year to this year in terms of just the perks, the locations have changed, but not the actual perks themselves. I'm going to be inclined that these 2 perks, tier 1 and tier 2, also haven't been changed. Again, whole deep dive on my channel about that perk last year. This basically gave you between a 5 to 10% buff, which is almost non-existent considering that EA nerfed the base recruiting rates for visits. This perk either should be giga buffed to compensate for them nerfing the base visit, or in EA fashion, like how they couldn't remember to change the description of the CEO perk, I doubt they changed how this perk works. So the combination of just recruiting needs to be very important and player progression needs to be very important. These small buffs for doing stuff is, again, negligible. So I would much rather just spend more money or buy more recruiting perks to recruit players than to, put them on a visit, which, by the way, you can lose. You could put someone on a visit and lose, which will harm you. So the first 2 tiers, you get a small 10% buff. Tier 3 is probably the best thing you get, but even then it's not going to fix the problems of the game. And then tier 4 is useless. This whole category is way too overglazed, way too overhyped. If anyone tells you to buy any of these 3 perks in this category of Tactician, Strategist, or Architect, just tune off the video. It's not good. Don't do that. These perks will actively hinder your experience playing the video game. And I promise you, just don't do it. So to end this very, very, very long video, looking at currently a 2-hour long file, so go me. Editing me will either trim this down to being very short or leave the whole thing up and you guys can just skim through it however you see fit. But to wrap things up with Architect, I will give it the credit it deserves. Of the 3 trees in this category, it's the best one of the 3. However, don't let it fool you. It's still trash, right? We will very quickly cover what Architect is. Tier 1, we have Can't Stop, Won't Stop. Players earn an XP bonus for every 3 games they win. That's not bad. It's also not like a small amount of XP. It's a pretty good chunk of XP. But last year we didn't have practice mode, which is kind of where this perk was really cool. It was kind of like getting free practice XP without having practice in the game. This year we do have practice, so like you kind of don't really need that if you just practice. I mean, it does stack with practicing, obviously, but like it's an okay tier 1 perk. Next, Star Maker. This was what used to be was in Talent Developer, is now in the Architect tree. The starting player gains more XP. Depending on how you play the game, that's either really good or useless. I typically try to start the oldest player I possibly can. So more than likely he's starting for 1 year and he's gone. So if you're starting like a freshman or I guess a true freshman or a true sophomore, and you know they're not going anywhere for 1 more year, 1 or 2 more years, it's not bad as extra XP. But if you want your players to progress better, just get Motivator or Talent Developer. This entire category is kind of just irrelevant. Next, we get to the main point of the category. This is to fix skill caps with Limitless and put a ring on it. But if you want to fix skill caps yourself, just do the skill cap glitch that's in the game last year, that's in the game this year, and break their skill caps. That's all you have to do. You could do that with any player, with any dev trait. It takes 30 seconds to do it. And so the fact you can buy a perk to do it for an in-game way, or just cheat and do it yourself, that's free. You have your choice on which one you want to do, but if you were to do it the in-game route with Limitless, the chance to increase a random skill cap when leveling up, I believe this was 11%. I forget the exact numbers I calculated last year. It was either like 11.3 or like 12.2. It was around 10 to 12%, which is just atrocious. You could fully triple stack this and have the perk never trigger. It's so bad. Again, considering you can just do a glitch and get far more value than just the perk, which is kind of like Strategist, where it's like, what's the point of giving me a perk when you can just do a glitch or use an in-game mechanic that is actually more valuable than the perk itself? So it's atrocious. Don't buy Limitless. It's pretty bad. And then put a ring on it. I never physically tested this perk, but I did use it for like 15 or so seasons, and I don't think it ever happened once. So this perk is I would be shocked if the odds were much higher than Limitless. But if you just want to fix your skill caps, which is the main reason why you would buy Architect, because you're not going to buy this for the XP. Maybe you are. Maybe you're the psychopath who buys Architect just for the first 2 tiers. But if you're buying this tree, you're doing it because you want to fix skill caps. If you just want to fix skill caps, dude, just break the skill caps. Break the game. And then you're fine. And that will wrap up a breakdown of what is objectively the best coach build in the game, which is pretty much most of base Motivator, all of Master Motivator, all of Talent Developer, all of Elite Recruiter, most of base Motivator with a few perks in Program Builder and CEO with a small sprinkle of Rainmaker and eventual Visionary. But if you don't have Rainmaker or you don't have Visionary and you don't have the patience to sit here and min-max because you got to wait for coordinators like Andre Brown and Jadarius Everett, I couldn't buy the Motivator perks until I had coordinator that had Motivator. So this build is not easy to do. It's very difficult to link up or to, I guess, sync up your coordinators to have what you need at that time to then fire them and get new ones. This took me 8 tries, as you guys can see. Attempt 8. Hee hee ha ha, I know. But yeah, it took me many tries, but eventually it happened, and it will happen for you. But if you don't have the patience to do the min-max and doing all this waiting for coordinators and all that boring stuff, I have basically the same coach build, but far easier with none of the bonuses. I will show you right after this. Just to give you guys a small example of like what does this build look like when you get everything going. I have no coordinators that do help me with XP. My OC and DZ at the point of this screenshot with Aiden Roth. Crazy name, almost Aiden Ross, which is crazy. But Aiden Roth, he got this, which is one random screenshot. He's an elite dev wide receiver. I do believe that when the whole build was done. Again, I have elite recruiting coordinators. I don't have talent developing coordinators. I don't have master motivating coordinators. And I have the base player progression XP as default. So I was still able to get 100 to 120 tokens with elite dev prospects with this build. With stars, I was able to get between like 60 and 90 tokens per season. Impact devs around 50. And then normal devs were around 30. So this build is really good even when EA does everything in their power to make your life miserable. This perk can kind of offset it. Now, imagine how good this was last year, right? If you played 26, you would know. by far the best coach build in the game, and it kind of sucks that it's still the best coach build, yes, but it's been neutered so much that only EA would nerf the fun in their sandbox mode, but there you go. And then just to show you what the normal coach build would look like, again, when you're not min-maxing the build and you don't have Rainmaker, all you would really do is buy, again, the exact same Motivator as you would already have done. As you guys can see, I have tiers 1 through 3 on that. For Talent Developer, I have tiers 1 through 4 on this. For Base Recruiter, as you guys can see, I have far less tier 2s and tier 3s because I didn't have the luxury of buying these things for cheap. For Elite Recruiter, I have everything purchased, again, tiers 1 through 4. For Program Builder, I have the bare minimum, which is the relationship builder with tier 1s and roster retention and coach family, because again, we're not going down the cheap route. I'm just buying stuff to buy stuff, so there is no need for inside track. And then in CEO, I have just lasting impressions and nothing else because, again, I'm not making things cheap. And all that being said, as you guys can see in the top right of the screen, I still have 24 tokens remaining. And how many years into this rebuild am I? I believe I'm, what, 15? I am also 16 years deep. So if I were to keep playing the save file, I could scrounge up another probably 150 to like maybe 200 tokens. So I could even go a step further and go and buy stuff and do stuff, but there's really no point. This is basically the exact same build as the previous one, just minus perks in Program Builder, minus perks in CEO, minus all of Master Motivator, and obviously minus Rainmaker and minus Visionary. So whether or not you want to min-max and buy everything for max discount to buy the most amount of things, or just simply play the game, spend your tokens as soon as you get them, and don't worry about your coordinators and all that boring stuff. Just play the game and enjoy the game. You guys can still do this coach build with a ton of success. And with that, that should wrap up our very, very, very long video. I appreciate y'all, and let's go ahead and roll the shout out, shall we? As always, I hope you have a wonderful morning, evening, night, afternoon, or day, depending on whatever time you watch my content in the future. Like, comment, subscribe on YouTube, give me a follow or sub on Twitch. I'd greatly appreciate that. And if you can, please become a member. Members get so many perks on the channel, early access to my videos, perks in the Discord, and freebies during the streams and stuff like that for voting and just a bunch of stuff. I appreciate memberships, help the channel a ton. And yeah, shout out all the beautiful bastards on screen right here. I appreciate y'all. And yeah, I will be getting this video edited. I will see y'all when I see you. Deuces.